Welcome. This piece is called Respair in 2020, the year the earth stood still. 19 years after the world-changing terror attacks of 9/11, 2020 is a year unlike any other in modern American history. Scratch that. Let's make that world history just to cover all our bases. When I wrote these words, the world was hopeful for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines and others that might share a 95% effectiveness against COVID-19. I am thinking of an obscure 15th century word, respair. That's Respair, and it means a return to hope. Think of it as flipping the switch on despair. I'm recording my thoughts as a letter to the unwritten future. My words are from the anguished present, examining and probing the broken back of a most torturous year, and our woes are not over yet. Flashback of the preceding months have the tenor of a horror story writ large. The great lockdown brought our nation and the world at large to an abrupt halt, a prolonged pause when hospitals were overrun with every surge and spike of new infections. In this much discussed and lamented, quote, new normal, unquote, most thinking and reasonable people adapted as best we could. Where we wore masks to protect others and ourselves, to stay healthy, and most importantly, to stay alive. Sadly, there was no shortage of right-wing conspiracy theorists and others who were not altruistic in nature. They refused to heed by the science and evidence that masks work. We were introduced to the awkward public dance of social distancing with our friends, neighbors, and strangers alike as potential partners who must keep 6 feet of separation from us. The only soundtrack is the ubiquitous mantra of, quote, we are all in this together, unquote. But that happens to be true on multiple levels. Trips to the grocery store and other public spaces have taken on a frightening jolt of urgency. A quiet panic held sway as people faced rationing of everyday conveniences. There's no truer signs of the apocalypse than daily shortages of toilet paper and disinfectants to keep people up at night. Make no mistake, no one was left untouched by this unfolding calamity. At the time that I wrote this, the COVID-19 pandemic had claimed the lives of over 200,000 American souls and counting. Terror took the shape of a virus not visible to the human eye. Yet the contagion appeared to be everywhere, on tainted surfaces, our bodies, the very air we breathe. Businesses and schools closed their doors, and the worst unemployment rates since the Great Depression of the last century descended upon America, disrupting lives with gale-force winds. Our frontline workers, doctors and nurses, stood their ground to save the lives that they could. They are the true heroes of our time, who are too often taken for granted by a grieving nation under siege. Amidst these terrifying new conditions, we learned to adjust as shadows of our former selves. We became talking phantoms, haunting Zoom meetings, eager to cast a virtual lifeline to the outside world. Ironically, this new age of contagion, mask, and video conference mediated reality also marks a time when long-held facades were stripped away, revealing deeper and older malignancies afflicting American life. Our nation's democracy was nearly brought to its knees under the oppressive Machiavellian maneuvers of a morally bankrupt, unqualified, and overtly malevolent reality TV celebrity turned president with a dictator complex, who suggested that perhaps injecting bleach was a cure for the disease. Let's be clear. Ingesting disinfectants is not a good nor sane idea by a long shot in this year or any other. Amidst our regrettable season of contagion and would-be demagogues, we were justifiably spellbound by a viral cell phone video of a police officer putting his knee on the neck of an unarmed, handcuffed African-American man for 8 minutes and 48 seconds as his life was extinguished before our eyes. However, the video was no revelation to people of color. We've seen these for generations, the malign and cruel bad actors who hide behind badges to oppress and kill at will as agents of official institutions masquerading under the guise of the public good. African Americans know all too well the rancor of America's oldest pandemic, bigotry in its ugly spectacle, with rogue cops, with killer racist impulses, playing judges and executioners without fear of reprisals or personal pangs of guilt. These blunt acts of systemic racism are the true cancer ravaging the body politic with devastating results. Then something unexpected happened. People from all races and religions and walks of life, they woke up to the horrors, and they said, enough is enough. A true people's uprising flooded the streets in the form of mostly peaceful protests. The cry for racial justice went viral in the best sense of the word. And the American movement of Black Lives Matter became a global phenomenon, a tidal wave of voices, determined to set the skewed scales of justice right for all. This short essay, this string of words, was drafted with a great and deep sigh of relief, in great anticipation after the most consequential election of our lifetimes. For those of us who value character and cherish dignity, reason, compassion, and empathy for all, we understand that the true test of America's greatness, of its strength, lies in its diversity. Despite covert and not so subtle attacks on our democracy, I know that I am not alone in feeling hopeful at the prospect of new leadership under President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, the first woman of color to become Vice President-elect. Let me tell you, January 20th, 2021 can't get here fast enough. Throughout the catastrophes and the seismic changes rocking our world, artists and writers, poets and dancers, singers and musicians persevered. Drawings and paintings and songs and stories are being created to record and remember this chapter in history. As one of the legions of unappreciated creatives, we look within and without to pause and reflect before we roll up our sleeves and do what we do best. We write and draw and dance and sing songs of what it felt like to be fully present and alive in this most jarring of moments. In the months ahead, 2 promising vaccines and perhaps others will eventually be distributed to the world's population. As a society, however, we can and must do better. than simply return to the old tired norms that defined our collective past. Perhaps we can summon the courage to pick up the pieces of our broken world and dare to build a new, more sustainable one out of the hollow ruins of 2020. Bold thinkers envision something better, an opportunity to start from a clean slate, and the promise of next year's spring as a season of renewal. Someday, I hope all Americans and citizens of the world will be truly valued and given a place at the table. It's a dream, but it's a dream worth having and one worth fighting for. I hope to see my family safe and healthy, along with my old friends and the new ones that I will make on the other side of this monumental year. I long to see their smiles and to recognize my own. For now, however, we have much to do in order to prepare to greet great and consequential work ahead. Like all great journeys, our next chapter starts with the first step. I am cautiously optimistic that we are up to the epic task ahead. It starts with having the audacity to dream, to create, but most importantly, to live. Thank you.